Monster Hunter World and Iceborne have done a few things that were hit and miss, a few things that even upset me at times, and I may be craving a more traditional Monster Hunter game but with the quality of life improvements of Iceborne for the next entry in the series. However, the amount of stuff that the 5th generation did right, and more importantly the amount of new stuff that it attempted, is nothing short of amazing. People always say about a new game in a beloved series that they want more bold choices, an evolution from past games instead of an extension, to be surprised. And that is exactly what Capcom did. I wanted to make a video on my final thoughts on Iceborne and the 5th generation as a whole. I stopped playing for about half a year and recently came back, and it gave me a new perspective both in how I feel and also how Capcom has been improving the game. There's been some confusion online over my feelings towards it, so I wanted to give you my consolidated thoughts as it's overall positive despite some of my criticisms of the game. Bottom line, overall the 5th generation is a fabulous entry to the series, even if it feels like it made some drastic changes in order to carve out a unique personality. It is very much a console game, and frankly that caught me off guard and was a point of friction for some time. Keep in mind that I've been playing portable focused Monster Hunter since I started playing the series, and while the core gameplay loop looks the same on paper, there's a lot of smaller design choices that go into the structure of the game and its operation that change when you go from portable to console, and they add up. I don't know where to start on my feelings, so I'm going to split this up by category, starting with visual design. The director for Monster Hunter World is Yuya Tokuda, a prolific monster designer for the series and behind many of the monsters that you know and love. Since joining Capcom after playing the first Monster Hunter game at Tokyo Game Show, he has always had a vision of the monsters being more realistic and alive, so the 5th generation is really his vision realized. Being his directorial debut, Monster Hunter World is drop dead gorgeous, and constantly I look at it in awe. There was a trade-off though of going all in on this idea, and that was that the visual design lost a lot of the colorful, vibrant colors that the series has been known for, as well as some of its goofy, humorous nature as well. They did manage to weave in cute and funny moments, but instead of being a fundamental part of the sponge, it feels like more decorations on the cake. Sound design and music are fabulous, and there really isn't much to talk about there, and just from a programming and build quality standpoint, at least on the platforms that I played it on, I have to say that my experience has been very solid. The game, like all the ones before it, is very well made. Now let's get into gameplay. Again, the most important thing here is that they were bold enough to try new stuff. There's no way of knowing what works well and what doesn't, no way of finding the new series-defining features without experimentation, so I'm very happy that they took the risks that they did. Game as a service. They nailed it in the fact that they have kept updating the game with new content and monsters since its release, and without charging people anything for it. They should be commended. The cost-value proposition of this game is as solid as the previous entries, if not higher. Where they could improve is that the time-sensitive nature of the events does not work well for people who have other commitments. Another area that is a side effect of this game as a service is the power creep. In order to keep players engaged with new content, there was a good amount of inflation in terms of power, and the post-game content easily outshines a lot of the base game gear that one can make. This is a tough one though, because looking at some of the responses when a DLC monster's set pieces aren't amazing has shown that unfortunately a lot of players like to be vocal about it being a waste of their time unless the gear is really good. I admit that I'm a little disappointed in the community when it comes to this topic, as it should be exciting just to have more stuff to hunt and craft, and the DLC monsters have some of the best design gear in the game. The armor system. I can't stand the fact that decorations are RNG based dropped items and charms are the craftable gear and not the other way around. You care far more about decorations in this game, as they do more for your set than charms, so I would have loved to see them stick to the way that it used to be, which was that you hunt for monsters to make parts to make decorations, and doing quests with RNG drops for charms. They could have even made the guiding land materials used to make rarer decorations, and that would have been super motivating as you know what you want and what you can make, and you can track your progress against it. A good RNG drop should feel like a pleasant surprise that opens up the door to new ideas and possibilities, not something that stops you from playing an entire concept set until you get it. Again, I think they did this as the game was designed as a service so that they figured that most people, having put in enough time, would eventually acquire everything that they want, but we all know that RNG is never that kind. Where they did nail it was this idea of removing the armor for Gunner and Blade Master. You used to have to craft the exact same set 2 times if you wanted to have a Gunner and Blade Master version, but they finally got rid of that, and it encourages players to try more weapons out. I hope they never go back to how it used to be. This has to be the new gold standard. Another area that one cannot deny is that while there was some fun and beauty in using Microsoft Excel and special program tools to figure out mixed sets, the idea of mixing parts became way more accessible to the average hunter with the way that they designed the skill level system. The way they did full set bonuses and stuff was a bit hit and miss at times, but overall the idea is solid, and one that I would love to see them build on in future games. I especially love the idea of weapons with built-in skills like the Call of Taroth weapons. They could really run with this going forward to help make each weapon feel more unique and more viable in the endgame. Now let's get into Iceborne specific content. When I did my review of the base game, I pointed out a lot of the stuff that they did right and a lot of the stuff that I didn't like. So let's focus purely on Iceborne content and the gameplay changes. First up is monster roster. Forgive me if I get the numbers slightly wrong here because I'm going off memory, but a large complaint of MHWorld was that it had only about 36 large monsters. Not enough. Iceborne added in 34 new monsters with a few more probably on the way. That means double the count with 70 large monsters and puts it right up there with the past games. Monster Hunter Tri Ultimate only had 51 large monsters, and Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate had 75, so this is fabulous in terms of additions when it comes to the roster. Next up is the hub town of Celiana. The new hub town is absolutely amazing. It's fabulously designed, densely packed with the features that you'd want, and the Gathering Hall is also improved from the base game as well. The theme song is amazing and never gets old. The new training room is absolutely fantastic too, and I hope that they keep this idea in every single Monster Hunter game going forward. Almost every area that has a lot of benefits when the team puts effort in is in communicating to the player how to play the game and what they're doing, so stuff like the training room is invaluable because finally people understood what their values of the attacks were, how to do different combos, and gave them a place to practice without stress. The Hoarfrost Reach. I like this map a lot, and it felt like the perfect addition to the base game. Very large, but with ample camps for moving around fast. Most importantly, the areas in which you fight monsters in this map all feel like unique arenas with different environmental things to both look out for and to utilize. And now for the elephant in the room, the Clutch Claw. This is a gameplay defining feature of Iceborne, and people are split on this for sure. The idea is neat, but it came with two caveats. First, in order to make sure that it was not OP, they had to raise the toughness of the monster parts and their health pool. But the side effect of that is that you need to use the Clutch Claw now. This means that instead of just being another cool tool at your disposal, it becomes almost a scripted action that you have to take when the monster is exhausted, and that can mess with the rhythm of the hunt. They also had to tweak skills like Weakness Exploit to require you to use the claw. For all the work they put in to make sure that this feature was not OP, they kinda failed. It's far too easy to knock down monsters, and you can use the claw to enrage the monster easily, which often makes them take more damage. I do find enjoyment in the mechanic, but I do feel that they made it too integral to the hunts. I suspect this feature though is just one of those special things of Iceborne, and it won't make it into future games, so in the end I'll just shrug it off. Mantles. I love the idea that they added slots to the mantles in Iceborne so that you can temporarily get some skills. I still though think that some of the mantles are too powerful, like the Rocksteady, Evasion, Apothecary, Impact, and Tempora Mantle in particular. They let you escape punishment from bad input or reckless action. But the idea in general I like, and I hope it's something that they will continue to build on in the future. New moves. The new moves that they added for each weapon were really neat, and overall they did a great job. I especially like that twirl move that you can do with the hunting horn. As a more action game focused title that pushes you to play aggressive and less deliberate than the past games, these moves work. But I do agree that some of them are too good, and weapons like the longsword should not be as versatile as it is, and while it might be fun for someone to go out and just hack and slash, it does take away from the beauty found in previous games. Overpowered hunters though is a general issue of the entire 5th generation if I'm being honest. Flagship monsters. Velkhana is a great monster. It feels unique, it's got a gorgeous set of armor and weapons to make. However, I gotta say that Nergigante really is the defining monster of the 5th generation, and they did such a good job on Ruiner Nergigante. It's just a shame that many players will never face the monster, since the game requires you to be MR 100 to do so. Ruiner Nergigante is punishing but fair, telegraphed, and the pace of the hunt is fast and fun. It's one of the best hunts in the entire game in my opinion, and worth grinding to get to, but I recognize that most people won't. New siege mechanics. Monster Hunter World introduced Call of Taroth, but Iceborne took the siege format to a new step further with Safi'jiiva. It's a shame that it's only really doable multiplayer, but the concept of the hunt is really cool. Basically, you'll earn a random base weapon from the hunt, and then you can use special items that you get in the rewards to spin a skill slot machine and make the weapon into something that you want. Boost the attack, the element, give it a slot, some skills, it's up to you. The final weapons are a tad too strong, so they kind of overpower the other base weapons, but that's a long time problem that exists in every Monster Hunter game. At least this time there's a huge amount of player customization rather than RNG, which I find really fun. It's like build your own weapon. Endgame. I very much dislike the endgame of Iceborne at launch, which is the Guiding Lands, and I'll put a link in the description down below, but I recently did a vid on this, but coming back to it, they've made some amazing improvements to it since its release. Since coming back, I've put in a lot of time and I enjoyed quite a bit. The concept is actually pretty simple. You do normal quests and investigations to get items to craft gear, and you do free hunting in the Guiding Lands to get materials to augment them. Credit has to be given to the director Ichihara-san. He was first given his directorial taste with Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, which wasn't even really planned to happen, but they needed to buy time for World, and he got to direct again for the second time with Iceborne. His team designed the very best hub in the game, and their openness to change this endgame with making it more playable shows a flexibility that we didn't see with Tokuda-san. As a result, I'm really eager to see him get his own game eventually to direct and not just stuck to just expanding on some other director's idea. I think he can do a great job. It's not a perfect endgame loop by any means, but it's got some really neat ideas and is quite fun now. I hope eventually that they do remove the raising and lowering of the levels. That would be a nice idea to give the area some more legs. Things that annoy me. Every Monster Hunter game comes with some mechanics that annoy just about all of us, so here's a quick rundown of the ones that annoy me about the 5th generation that I kinda really haven't touched on in this video. Weapon designs. There's still some slap-on designs which I absolutely hate. They did better with the DLC monsters in giving them their own classic designs or cool new ones, but the legacy problem Iceborne inherited is one that they didn't choose to fix at the start, which I find disappointing. Lunastra. Not having the option to make a 4-person hub. Monsters run away too often. I came to hunt monsters, not chase them down. Power creep in monsters and gear. The gradual introduction of MMO-like mechanics like aggro, DPS checks, gimmicks like stand here or die, over-reliance on area of effect attacks to generate difficulty, timed events, and multiplayer-only siege quests. The inability to pause the game when playing offline. Overpowered hunters both in moves but also the ability to restock indefinitely at camp. A chat system that feels clunky compared to previous titles. Too much RNG. We don't even have a healthy roster of option quests because they just assume that we'll be getting investigations for all the monsters we want to hunt, but that's just another RNG drop. And there's probably a few more. On the flip side, the things I love. For every issue that I have with the game, there's easily 2 or 3 things that they did that I love. Here are some of the ones I have yet to mention. Connected areas with no more loading. Getting rid of basic tools like pickaxes and bug nets. Faster gathering and auto-combining. Cats you can find in the wild that will join and help out. Turf wars between monsters. The camp system and improved mobility when moving between the map areas. The ability to see how much damage you're doing. The radio menu. Weapon trees visible in the armory. Ability to rejoin a hunt if you get disconnected. Being able to see your remaining sharpness. Natural traps and items to use in the environment. The armor preview feature. The wish list function. And the list goes on. And finally, deliberate action. This is the area that is both the strength of the concept for many players, but also the part that rubs me and some hunters the wrong way, and that is the lack of deliberate actions needed. This is a design choice from the creators of this game, and it is what it is. Here are some examples of what I mean. With RNG being a factor in most aspects of this game, since they assume and wanted people to just play this game over a long period of time, 1. Decorations are the single most important part of your sets, and you get them randomly, so it doesn't really matter which monster you hunt, just do a quest that pays out decorations and see what you get. 2. If you want an investigation for a monster, just hunt random stuff. There's no deliberate choice in what hunt you're going to go on because it's random which one you're going to get. 3. With infinite item restocking during a hunt, you don't have to be deliberate about using your potions or max potions or ancient potions, you can always restock. 4. With the ability to craft most of the rare items at the Elder Melter, you don't even have to be deliberate about which quests you go on, you can just use a Celestial Print if you need a rare item. And 5. Action seems like it's made to just push the players to be aggressive, offering lots of methods to ignore bad gameplay like equipable mantles that are too strong, making it easy to flinch or down a monster, and the endless items when you need to heal. Ultimately, in their quest to make this game easy to pick up and play, they made it more of a hack and slash action game, and the punishment for bad decisions is generally pretty low. And as a result, it just feels fundamentally different from the past games in which everything had to be very deliberate. Maybe you prefer how it is now, or maybe you prefer how the older games did it. There's no right answer here, but it explains why some players just didn't feel the game, and while some newer players may not feel the older games. Now, after all that blabbing, my conclusion. So where do I fall in the end? If I'm being honest, the quarantine may have given me time to sit down and play a console game, which is great, but I do prefer the portable friendliness of the more recent games in the series. I also prefer the deliberate gameplay of the older titles over the aggressive action focus of the recent one. But let's not talk about what I prefer. You have to judge a game based upon what it is and what it sets out to do. And what we got was a fabulous new entry in the series that really goes for it and embraces new game design choices, and in the end, it's unique, it's a high quality Monster Hunter game. Iceborne in particular is a fabulous addition that addressed many of the shortcomings of the base game while adding in a lot of new content. In other words, exactly what an expansion set should do. And the director's openness to tweak things like the endgame makes it even better. At certain points in my journey through the 5th generation, I kind of wanted the game to be something that it wasn't, or I was getting frustrated because I wanted to play it, but it's a console-focused game and I just didn't have the ability. Once I learned to shut my brain off on what I was expecting or what I was used to, and I just judged it on its own merit, I actually had a lot of fun with this game. The endgame I did not like, but the changes that the director made has really made the endgame much more enjoyable for me as well. I'm a huge fan of Monster Hunter, so I get that when something is not to your taste or you're just not feeling it, that feelings of unhappiness can get kind of exaggerated or cloud how you feel overall about the game. It happens to me as well. But despite the things that bothered me, overall the game is fantastic and they did so many new things that we really have a good idea of what should become a series staple going forward and what features can be left behind. I said in my review of Monster Hunter World that it was the best Monster Hunter game ever made, and from a production value standpoint I still feel the same. Comparing Monster Hunter games to each other is kind of pointless since they all set out to do different things. Everyone knows that I feel that Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate was my favorite entry in the series, and it still is, but Iceborne is a great entry as well. It might feel different in many ways, but I think the fact that it does so many different things is what makes it special. As I look forward to the next entry in the series whenever that may come, I leave 5th generation with nothing but fond memories and invigorated to see what Capcom will do next. This video is just my personal feelings, but hopefully you found it interesting to hear, and until next time, happy hunting. Also, a quick shout out to my friend Hunter D for being a great person to talk to. When you're struggling to consolidate your own thoughts and put it on paper, it often helps just to talk through it with somebody else, so thank you for lending your ear to me.